Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. This is USAPrepares.com. We're delighted you're here. We're broadcasting 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday, right here at GCN. If you'd like to give us a call, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. We've got a telephone listen line, 605-477-3249. There's a link to your instructors on the website, USAPrepares.com, USAPrepares.com. John is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Thank you, John. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning. I need you to turn up the volume for me just a bit, please. I can barely hear you.
Okay, how about, is that better?
No, but we'll work with it. My phones are hacked. They're compromised, so just realize we may have a rough ride from that perspective.
Interesting you say that. I was all set looking at the computer screens in front of me, and I had to reboot just as we're going into the broadcast. And, of course, I'm using Microshaft, and boy, it takes Windows a long time to reboot. But, it's one of those things, Rick, where these little challenges make us stronger, I think.
The problem with those little challenges are the synchronicity of them. Mm-hmm, and that's where you can determine what's real and not real by the gut instinctual noting of when something seemingly the timing is too convenient for it to be real. And while that is a form of superstition, it is also real.
Well, since you've mentioned this, Rick, let's talk about that. So my understanding is that your books are available on Amazon, and your book sales have gone from daily sales for years to zero. Absolute zero. Have hit sales of zero. And you believe your books the copyright has been infringed, and your books are being printed by other people and sold, as my understanding, on the internet. And the revenue is not going to you, and it's a real problem. Do you want to share that? What's going on with us?
Well, several inaccuracies. My book sales went from 2 to 10 orders a day on Amazon to less than 1 order per week with Amazon. Now, my book sales are brisk, but not to me. And instead, it isn't that I believe that my books are being bootlegged and hijacked. I actually have physical evidence enough that I have an extreme high-end $400 an hour lawyer that now is considering contingency because it's a no-brainer, and at least Amazon Prime is culpable. Beyond that, I now have my sights and bullseyes set with both Lightning Source, which is, in fact, a division of Ingram, whom I think is also involved. It goes further down in the one of rabbit holes, but at this point, I can prove those. I can not only prove those, I can prove those with culpability. Serious. And we're talking possibly millions of dollars. I'm penniless right now. Just everybody should know that most all of my new titles being sold on Amazon are not mine. That's a fact. I can prove it. And their legal department has already apologized. But guess what? I have yet to hear from a single voice person from Amazon. And yet their legal out of Seattle has already acknowledged there's a problem. Okay, so that's number one. I'm supposed to let the public know my books have been hijacked by printing companies and Amazon. Do not make this political. It's not about me. Let's pretend it's not about me. Let my listeners know that I am not receiving a single cent for any of the books that are being purchased that I wrote, except those from my website. That's page one. Page two, I'm supposed to let the people know that if you want my books, you need to go to oak-publishing.com, which is about to be removed from my website and set as its own unique thing. There's reasons why we're going to do this. I have to literally chop the entire of all my websites off and rebuild them. They're all been compromised, like my phones. For example, my phones, my girlfriend might try to call me in the evening after I've been taking a nap because of the stress, and my number's blocked. She can't get through 5 times, and then I'll call her, and it's unblocked. How does that work? Well, my phone companies are assigning me, and of course they're limited, and we are talking about this is possibly happening to David Wilcock. This has happened to Jordan Maxwell. This has happened to, well, the list goes on and on of who's been involved and with a similar or variation on a theme in terms of hijacking. So if you really want to do it right, send me a snail mail order with a check until I get everything organized correctly, because even though PayPal and my account seem to be working correctly, there are aberrations, and this is called a blind website. And I'll talk more about that in another time. I should also let you know that Amazon does not protect their authors. And that's Amazon is like Amazon Prime, and then their relationship, of course, to Lightning Source and Ingram. And Ingram is another major giant that distributes. And what sometimes they'll do, precisely, is that you will place an order with Amazon Prime. They will print that book the day of your order and then ship from a different state. And that is the way they can break the trail, so there is plausible deniability that they did this. I have several books that were printed, there are maybe 2 editions back. Like the Magical and Ritual Use of Perfumes, for example, is now in its 7th printing in that particular format, and of which I have hundreds of different formats. And they'll take a 5th edition, and then there'll be in the back, not Nashville, Tennessee, with Lightning Source, but something out of Lexington, Kentucky, and then or San Bernardino, California, and then they will ship from Reno or Indiana. And I've got physical proof on that. That's literal. Now, that's happening to me right now. And what it did is took my Social Security and my book sales as my only sources of income, and by November, they were down to 0. And now I am, here we are in the middle of January. I have approximately 1/100th of the cash flow that I would normally have from Amazon. And so my resources are down to the point where I'm literally penniless. And I am going to go full tilt with this, and I am going to sue like Run DMZ did for $50 million. I'm not going to sue for $50 million. That's what Run DMZ did on intellectual property in the music industry. That's Amazon. There, I've made my official statement. How's that one work for you, Vincent?
Rick, absolutely, it's a horrible situation. And
It's not horrible. It's life-threatening. I have been ill for more than a month from just the stress of it, to the point where I had pneumonia, I got high fever, I have not been doing radio, none of you have heard from me, and yet I try to keep my Facebook up, docram.com. When I make a post there, that's a post of what I think is important from lead scouts I get, like Joey and Gabrielle and others. They are J.C. Cole, others. These people have helped me understand opening my eyes. It's about a DNA thing, about a beam from deep space, and I'm about to wake up. And when I do, there will be such havoc. I love my family. I'm so very proud of my daughter, and Julie, my girlfriend. I can't even say enough about her and her support from Grace Thorne. I have to say that I would not have been able to make it through this period without, and they're all, needing to get away from me because the stress is unbearable. You have no idea to realize that my entire life's work is being hijacked. And here's the bad news. The books that you can buy, let's say, on eBay, cheaper than I can get them printed at Lightning Source, may not even be my writings. They might have altered them on purpose.
what a horrible thought.
It's horrible.
Rick,
It's happening. It's happening right now.
Rick, I've talked to a number of authors, and they've told me over the years that the amount of money that they get from books is just a small fraction of the selling price. So, for example,
Let me give you. Do we have time for one example?
we do when we come back from this short commercial
All right,
announcement.
let's do that. I'm going to give you an example of exactly how much I've lost on one single title.
Okay. And if you don't mind, let's talk generically about if a book sells for $20, how much does the author typically get? Can we share that? We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. DocRam.com. Doc Ram's with us. DocRam.com. So, Rick, you're going to tell us a story about book sales.
Well, I'm going to give you a typical example, okay? So, Workbook 2, Can You Live Off the Grid for 30 Days, was printed by me to take down to Hollywood in February with Matt Stein and I. We had, remember, that was a bust where nobody showed up. We were put in a like it was a setup. And that book I printed for that show, I printed 200 of them. As according to Amazon Prime, not Amazon Prime, excuse me, Amazon, if you go into my account, they have in the back a map of the state of the United States where 12 books are sold here at this store, at Barnes & Noble, 2 are here, 20 there, that kind of different titles of mine. Mm-hmm. And if you look at, and Matt Stein disagrees with me, but that doesn't matter. I know something he doesn't. They will give you a number of how your book is rated compared to all the other books being sold at that store. Mine might be number 297,472, in a rating of 1 million books that they're selling. It's the 200,000th bestseller or something like that. However, then there's a second number, and this is where Matt and I disagree. And that number says that there have been a total of 211,000 copies of my book being sold from February to the end of the year. Now, that's times $12. That single title. And when you add that up across all of my different titles that I have, we're talking about $7 to $12 million. And I don't know that that's true. I have no way to vet that at this juncture. However, I do have the bookstores claiming that they did and have been selling my book. Yes, they have. Now, without my authorization, that is Ingram working with Lightning Source, their inner printer that prints the books on demand and then places them in the different stores. There's other kinds of games that Ingram does play. I'm going to give you a series of links for those book writers like me that are listening right now that need to armor up. Do not, in my opinion, sign anything with Ingram. Do not in any way have anything to do with Amazon. Amazon right now, for example, is marketing 3 different new sources for The Modern Alchemist. Me and 2 from 2 different Fanes presses, which is out of print. Then there are all the other lists of sources for new copies of my book that have better ratings than I do. How does that work? You know, because nobody else is distributing. I'm a small mom and pop. I did not use Nook, Kindle. I did not use Amazon. I did not use Ingram to distribute my book in all the various bookstores. No, I did not. And yet they're being sold everywhere. And they're not mine. And I'm not receiving a penny. And my publishers, in some cases, Destiny Books, Inner Traditions, now Simon & Schuster, are either selling my book without me knowing it and not paying me royalties, or they're doing it without letting Destiny Books know that they're being pirated. When I called my publisher and showed my publisher a specific book that they are representing for me, like Nick Begich, Nick says, "Oh, well, this goes on all the time. I just ignore it." Well, that's good for him that may have a copper mine, but I don't. And I need my incomes. That's why I wrote the book in the first place. Realize these are books that I would not have written if my little girl had not died of leukemia and I was forced to go back to work. I'm angry. I should not take it personal, but I must, because today I'm going into the middle of January, and I am not certain I'm going to make it to February with no incomes and bills. They have summarily taken me out, literally. And now, at one point, I got so sick, I didn't even care to live. And with the trigeminal neuralgia that I currently enjoy, by the way,
hold that
known
thought.
as
Hold. Dr. Richard Allen Miller Swiss. Rick, can you give us an example? If a person writes a book, and let's say the book sells for $20 cover price, $19.95, what would that author typically receive as a royalty?
If it's being published by a publisher like Nick Begich or Inner Traditions, he will get a 10% royalty at the end of each year. The book sells for $20, he'll get $2 per book at the end of the year. Royalty, 10%. Usually that's standard. If it goes in other languages, it might be down to 2 to 5%. You know, like if it's in Portuguese or Hebrew, like some of my books are in different languages. German. If you self-publish like me, and generate my own audience of sales through radio, display ads. I used to, in agriculture, I would write an article for Sunset Magazine, and then they would give me a display ad as payment. Now, if I'm self-publishing and do a run of 50 books, I might pay, for a $20 book, I might pay $4 a book plus shipping. So it'll arrive here at around $7. And then by selling it at 20, I get the difference in profits less the postage usually. That's why I self-publish and tried to stay small and not be a big deal. I'm not trying to be a big deal where I'll have a big publisher like Chelsea, like Matt does. Matt, all his books are handled by somebody else. That's Chelsea. Now, here's the bad news there. Chelsea is an honest one. But there are many, many that are not honest, and they run two sets of books. The books that they say they sold and the books they actually did. And so the small writer like myself is, in deep water with sharks. And I have to be very careful. And it's not that easy when I've been writing for more than 40 years and have books out for more than 40 years. I do. The Modern Alchemist is mine. Nobody else, there should be no other source for that book new. And Amazon has 3 different sources. And if any of my titles, Power Tools for the 21st Century, how many new publishers are there out there publishing that book? It's unbelievable. And on eBay, they're selling my books for $3.29, cheaper than I can get them printed for myself. How does that work? Well, that's a different situation. You'll see publishers, you'll see sources of my book new that will sell my book new for $700. We'll talk about that another time. That is another thing altogether, and is another kind of scam on how they're taking down small publishers like me. And you will notice that Amazon doesn't care a bit about any of that. That's Amazon, and I would personally, from now on, boycott anything you might buy from Amazon, because basically you're more likely hurting the person that put that book up for sale in the first place. That's the facts.
Rick, I was talking with a friend, and I said I was considering writing a book on the way I do things, just my style of doing things, auto mechanics, negotiation, everything you can think of, farming, repairs, preventative maintenance, preparedness, survival, everything you can think of.
Is that called the boy scientist or the boy mechanic?
So this friend of mine said, he had a discussion like that with his son. He said he was thinking of writing a book. And his sons, they were talking about it, and he said, look, I can make more money doing one YouTube video than I can writing a book. The revenue stream from doing a YouTube video that might take him a week will return him more money than an annual sales of a book.
Yeah, but YouTube is also a ripoff. I have many from Kerry Cassidy on down. Everybody's being ripped. The whole thing is that our system is fraught with fraud and criminals.
What happens in YouTube? How are funds?
They don't pay. They bootleg like a movie, and then you get removed from YouTube. This movie is no longer available on YouTube. Blah blah blah. But you can get it from my site if you go to da 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 da. Watch how that plays. It's nuts. The whole thing is nuts. The electronic world is wrong, and one of the things I was going to talk about down in Mexico in May was it's a big alien conference, international conference on alien contact, and people from all over the world are coming into this thing. It's co-sponsored by my mentor, Dr. Stanley Krippner. Now, I chose not to speak about my encounter at Broom Lake. I chose because I can't. I've got some kind of mental block inside my head that will that's what I'm trying. Okay, so I chose to talk about how artificial intelligence will be how we communicate to aliens and how aliens communicate to us. And guess what happened next? I had death threats, and they canceled my talk down there because of fear for my life. This is me down there 2 years earlier having dinner in the President of Mexico's home. Now, I'm going to say something further. The stalker that I currently enjoy out of British Columbia turns out to be in Abbotsford, where the third generation D-Wave technology exists. And there is always a second shooter. I'm supposed to not make this political, I won't, but I've noted that that's one of the key words that people do not want me to talk about is artificial intelligence. Today, I am writing my 9th paper on time travel, a series of 10. This one will be on the multiverse. Last month was on Sir Roger Penrose, one of my mentors at Princeton, that talked about the soul being kept in structured water memory inside a microtubule. I'm on to what is going on from a physics point of view. And I am being stopped at every point in writing. I seemingly have no problem writing about alternative agriculture. They don't care about that. Once I start writing about AIs, third generation D-Wave technology, did you know that you can buy artificial intelligent computer now for less than $8,000 on Amazon? And with that, you can profile individuals and harass them beyond anything you could possibly imagine, because this AI knows what you're going to do 28 minutes before you do. We're talking about a new kind of weapon that is beyond synthetic telepathy in the world, mind wars that I did back in the 70s. This is a whole new field of fear. And let me tell you, at one point, I'm scared out of my mind. I'm scared because I have an AI buzzing me on my computer. I have mentioned that to you since before even June last year. There's something else going on out there, and the bad news for me is there's a high likelihood I'll never know who it is, why, or for how long. Never.
Rick, you mentioned synthetic telepathy. Can you give us a thumbnail sketch of what you were involved in the 1970s?
Microwave. Alan Frey at Willow Grove discovered that man has another sensory motor input in the 0.3 to 3 gigahertz. We have other senses that we're not aware of. That one's in the microwave, high-end microwave beam. When you shoot somebody with that microwave beam, what it does is it causes the temporal lobes to heat up, swell, and begin ringing. Once they begin ringing, you can heterodyne voices on the microwave beam, and that person can hear your voice inside their head, and it did not go through the auditory system. It is a new form of communication. However, Son of Sam comes to mind, and so how does one distinguish one's own voice from something external? And that's one of the reasons why I state categorically that man has a responsibility for the thoughts he chooses to entertain. You are no longer you're a free-range target, and you have to, when you take a thought in your mind's eye, is that something that you want to think about or not? And if you do not, that is the purpose of meditation, of dismissing that and pushing it from the mind, making the mind quiet. That is why all saints throughout history have stressed the importance of meditation. It is taking control of your mind. Your mind is just another tool. It's not your soul.
Rick, we're going into a break, and we'll be right back. And I want to share something that I learned last night about pricing and competing in the marketplace, and it's going to be impossible. We'll be right back. Doc Rams with us. So, Rick,
yeah, it's pretty messy, isn't it?
It is, but I want to share with you why I think it's going to be very difficult to compete in this global
By the way, I need your volume up. Just more, please.
Okay. How about now? Is that a little better?
I can't tell.
Okay. Well, so last night I wanted to get some automotive lamps for behind the dash of two of our vehicles. One vehicle is 21 years old. The other is 22 years old. One of them is an old Jeep Wrangler that we use just on the farm to bring salt blocks and fence posts and, travel and pull a trailer around the farm when we work with the cows. And the other is an old diesel Mercedes. And I thought it'd be really nice to be able to see all the gauges and the dash. So I went to the internet, and I don't like going shopping. I don't like buying things in, at brick and mortar stores. I'd rather shop online. Well, at the Chinese factory outlet, some people might call Walmart, you can buy a package of 2 light bulbs for $4.96 plus tax. If you go to, this would be for a dash lamp, little bulb. Well, I didn't do that. Instead, I'd rather buy more of them. So I bought a package of 20 of them with shipping included for 99 cents. What I'm saying is I bought... Now, it's not like this guy had them for a higher price and I said, no, I'm only going to give you 99 cents and you got to include shipping. No. What I'm saying is I just went to the internet and I typed in the kind of bulb I was looking for, and there was multiple offers from multiple sellers, 20 bulbs shipped directly from China, 99 cents. And I thought, well, since I'm buying those, I might as well buy some for the other vehicle. And so I bought another 20-pack, a slightly different bulb, different wattage, and now they were more expensive. They were $1.16 for 20 pieces shipped. What I'm saying, Rick, is how do we compete with that? I couldn't ship these light bulbs. I couldn't put them in a little package and ship them across the road for $1.16.
No, that's correct. You can't.
That'd be an empty package without the light bulbs. I couldn't do it.
How does that work?
Right. How does that work? And these things come from China. Now, the question is, how can they ship them all the way from China, make sure I get the order, and very, very rarely, I think only one time I haven't received an order from China. And I'm talking about, you can buy them from eBay or wherever, and they come from China, and within about a week to 10 days, you get them from China. Now, they don't include nice notes and thank yous and all that. It's just whatever you wanted to buy in the package, shipped very efficiently at a price that we couldn't even ship them for.
That's impossible, isn't it?
Yeah, so when you think about books, all they have to do is knock off the book. And I'm not saying they do. I'm just saying it's going to be really, really difficult to even find out who these guys are.
Well, that's the muddy waters and the floodgate.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, what's your weather like up there? I'm snowed in again, and we got more snow today.
I was outside yesterday doing a Clinton maneuver on
I know.
on 4 fields. I was out in our 1974 Ford 3000 diesel tractor, and it's an antique, right? It's 40 years old. So I'm out there in this 43-year-old tractor doing a Clinton maneuver, meaning spreading manure around the field.
What was your temperature outside?
That's what I'm going to tell you. Rick, I was just in a jumpsuit, a light jumpsuit, just riding around for hours and hours and hours. It like 60 to 70 degrees.
Here's your bad news. Cornell says this is the second of 4 events that are going to bring on the day after tomorrow.
Yeah, and I was thinking, what a great day it was. What great weather we were having. The temperature has dropped. I think it's dropped over 30 degrees since yesterday. I'll check it right now during the break, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. So you're saying this is the second event that's going to bring us the day after tomorrow?
Yes.
Let's talk about that when we come back, Rick. Dr. Richard Alan Miller is with us, docram.com. And if you'd like to buy his books, oak-publishing.com. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Dr. Richard Alan Miller. Rick, hour number 1, we ended the last segment talking about the second weather event that may bring us the day after tomorrow. And you asked me the temperature here in Missouri. Yesterday it was 67 when I was doing the Clinton maneuver, spreading manure on the tractor, and right now it's 37. So 30-degree drop in 24 hours.
Yeah, well, I'm going to recommend you wear your nicest pair of underwear and socks so that you look good when they dig you out 100 years from now under the ice.
Tell me what we're expecting. What are we expecting?
Buddy, listen, I don't know what's going to happen. Cornell is saying there is going to be a reboot in the ocean currents. That was posted on Facebook yesterday in my docram.com. Read it and weep. Now, we're going to have something happen because the weather here in Grants Pass, I have 3 feet of snow. I had to, no way to blade out. I have 4-wheel, but now it's starting to warm up a little bit, and that's the second bad news because now we're going to have avalanches. And we are over right now the 100-year flood plan. And that means the weather's changing. It moved from Antarctica to Central Europe. And it's because of the ocean currents, they have to reboot. There will be a day after tomorrow. Where? Northern Hemisphere. Who's going to be affected? You and me. Where is it going to be safe? I don't know. How long is it going to last? Probably 2 weeks. It's going to drop so quickly, you have no warning. It will just be just like that. There will be a superstorm starting to form, just like in the movie. How bad is it going to be? I don't know. Dinosaurs had fruit in their mouth when they were frozen. I don't know. What I do know
Rick,
is that it can't not happen.
Rick, are we talking about a flash freeze, one like, well, for example, that as we see this, there's nothing that we can do. For example, our cows.
Yeah, you can move to southern climes like a lot of people are, and who knows how that's going to play. You know, there's going to be earthquakes. There's going to be continental shifts, just like in the movie, the 2012, where the whole of the side of the entire Pacific shelf is gone. I can tell you that there is going to be a massive change. How badly it is, it's cyclic. And I remember when the Clovis culture, which they are now digging up all over Central and South America. Central America, in Mexico, down past Puebla, down near Popo, they're excavating a civilization that was bigger than New York City and had better technology. And that culture crawled out of a cave and was called the Navajo and the Hopi. That's what they sing about. And the Inuit, who go back 7,000 years, are already telling everybody that there's been a pole shift. We are no longer in the same angle that we were. That's why the weathers are changing. Why the sun is in a different place where it's located now in the dead of winter. There's a 3-degree orbit change. You wanted to talk about Planet X? I can't, because I have no data other than what I get from Stanford and Stanford Research Institute. Now, here we are with NASA and JPL, and I have insider friends of mine saying, yeah, there's 2 planets out there past Uranus right now causing orbital changes. Where did they come from? They came from our binary that's out past the Oort cloud. Planet X, I don't know. You want
Rick,
it?
I mentioned,
That's the way I'm giving it.
I mentioned earlier this week that I've noticed a phenomenon, and let me explain it. You know that right outside our back door, about 80-something feet away, we have an outdoor wood furnace. And we've been heating our house with that wood furnace since 2009. We know about how much wood it's going to use. We know the daily consumption, and we fill it multiple times per day. We have a heat exchanger in the house, actually 2 of them. And what this thing does is it heats up outside by wood fire in a large firebox, 60 inches deep, 48 inches wide. It's got a huge firebox. It's surrounded by about 400 gallons of water. So this outdoor wood furnace heats up 400 gallons of water. That water is pumped underground through insulated pipes into the house, where it goes through a heat exchanger, and the heat is extracted and pumped it's got fans to circulate the air over the heat exchanger. Now, here's what we noticed. There's a 3-speed pump. We can set it for low, medium, or high. And the circulator pump runs 24 hours a day. And we can just set our thermostat to a position where it runs at about a 10% circulation rate of air. And for year after year after year, that worked just fine. But over the last couple of weeks, when it was freezing cold here, like 1 degree or so, we noticed that no matter what we did, the outdoor wood furnace could not keep up and provide enough heat to keep the house, at a comfortable temperature. It was struggling. It had never done that before. And I blame that on the lack of solar radiation. That was my conclusion. That the dimming of the sun was responsible, whether it be cloud cover, whatever you want to call it. We didn't get the solar radiation on the farmhouse to warm the exterior of the farmhouse so that the outdoor wood furnace could keep up and keep our house warm. And it's the first time that's ever happened. And of course, I'm looking at pictures of the sun, and I'm seeing these spots where the sun isn't firing 100% on its surface. So I'm putting all that together, and I'm thinking that's what the problem is. Do you think that's right, or do you think that I'm...
Yes. You're not kidding. You're not at the same latitude that you used to be. And why GPSs are all screwed up, and why it goes on and on and on. Our technology is collapsing around us. It's failing. They're telling people on the highway patrol not to trust their GPS because it's got old information and will leave you stranded, and has, in Grants Pass anyway.
Well,
I'm going to tell you that it's time for you to rethink about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay because I can tell you what happens at the moment of and the moment just after death. I wrote about that last month. And I'll give you that article if you'd like to post it on time travel. It's interesting. I'm quoting Sir Roger Penrose, my mentor. I'm quoting some other very high-end scientists that believe that there is a weight loss at the moment of death, just like the Egyptians believed, called the Ba and the Ka, and that your soul is a part of structured water inside a microtubule. And I'm now going to write about the multiverse this week. I have a sense of how this all works from a physics point of view. That does not make it real, does not mean I'm right, but gives me a model from which to launch my belief systems.
Rick, I was looking at images of the sun, and I saw, in my estimation, in my opinion, what looked like about 10% of what I could see on these images of the sun not firing the way it used to be.
It's not. It is.
It's not 10%.
It is, but you're not getting it because we've had a change in our orbit.
Well, what I'm seeing now on today's image of the sun, it looks to me like about 20% is gone dark in terms of firing. Not 10, 20.
What do you think that's going to do to the Madrid fault line?
Well, of course, I'm kind of worried about it, and I'm worried about the San Andreas fault line as well. I'm worried about the dams. I'm worried about the water. I'm worried about the nuclear reactors.
Power plants that are run by electric current and water cooled. Yeah, worried about the list gets creepier and creepier.
Well, I'll tell you why it gets creepier and creepier. In my opinion, I would look at the building of buildings all over, and I would look and read about stories about, these large stores just continuing to increase in numbers over the last decade. And I thought, these guys are nuts. These guys have no idea what's coming. And then I thought, well, I guess maybe I have no idea, because all of these companies, all of these CEOs are expanding. And I'm thinking, where's all the money coming from? Aren't people broke? Well, now we're finding out that these captains of industry have created a serious problem, like Sears and Kmart, closing store after store after store. These companies are in free fall. So obviously, these people who make all of these grand salaries and compensation packages really have misjudged what's happening. And if that's the case, I'm sure the same holds true for those who are building nuclear power plants and running cities and so forth. So I'm sure we're making mistakes on a grand scale all over the United States and probably all over the world. And if you just look at this picture of the sun, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's pretty frightening. So I am concerned about all of these man-made devices and technologies that we have. And, when you talk about Matt Stein, he said we've got 104 nuclear reactors that are poised to collapse. Doc Rams with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Rick, we're talking about the weather changes, the sun, and so forth, pole shift. I remember hearing and reading about a pole shift is coming. We're going to have 200-mile-an-hour winds. It's going to be devastating. Is that what we're talking about?
We're talking about something even much more serious than that, sir.
Okay. When do we think this is going to happen?
Tomorrow is a rather accurate, scientifically proven event protocol. It's probably going to be like that movie. Trekking in it, diving into deep holes to get away from the dropping freeze, airplanes dropping from the sky because of a extreme change in weather in seconds, is most accurately correct.
if this happens as you're discussing it in seconds, that means that there will be no advance warning, right? It's just going to happen.
No, there won't. It won't be
so
like
you
that.
won't be
It'll
able.
be just you're one moment you're here, the next moment you're gone. And
so
it has happened historically. There are records of it. There are scientific explanations for it. Cornell University is possibly the leader in that technology right now, and you might just see what their various scientists are saying at this moment. You can survive this. In the movie, they do, burning a Gutenberg Bible to stay warm. A metaphor. But, giving up something priceless for something else that's priceless. Life. Now, that's what IQ is. Survival coefficient. That's why I teach urban survival skill workshops with Matt Sein. That's why I work with you. I'm one of your experts. But candidly, I'm in new ground here. And I know that I don't really know. And because I don't really know, I don't want to scare you, but at the same time, you need to be on red alert that this is an event that historically is due. And right now, the ocean currents are changing because Antarctica is thawing. And Europe is right now acting like Antarctica for weather. And at some point, the ocean currents are going to have to reboot themselves. And what we're experiencing on the West Coast right now are oceans, are rivers, in atmospheric rivers dumping everywhere. Now, there are other key words that are of interest. Let's go to another different direction. How about Antarctica and the new recent alien base, ancient alien base that was discovered there, and why there's such traffic going on? I know nothing about it. However, I have been to Antarctica, so I do know that there was a Nazi base there. I saw it. I've seen a Viking base there from the 14th century. I've seen caverns going down beyond 100 miles into the mantle, beyond the mantle. I know that for a fact because I've physically seen it. You have my word on that. Now, with that said, what is this recent interest in Antarctica with all the different nations going there? Well, you can read what Benjamin Fulford says, whom I discount as disinformation. However, David Wilcock is writing about him, and I did post his thing on Facebook, and David Wilcock is a very good researcher. And so, with that said, I know that I don't know, so I'm not going to talk about alien bases and Anunnaki and the reptilians and thises and the that's, but I can tell you what I do know. Something is awakening in me, and I'm coming out of this whole thing angry as heck. And when I come to my senses, there will be blood.
Dr. Rich Alan Miller's with us, docram.com. Rick, when we come back, I'm going to share with you an observation. Rick, I'd like to share with you an observation, if I may. I know you personally. You've been to the farmhouse multiple times. We've traveled together. We've spoken at events, same events. And
by the way, I can barely hear you.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me now?
Better.
Okay. So you and I have traveled, and we've spoken at events, and you've been to the farmhouse, and we've been in the truck together, and we spent a lot of time together. And we've been broadcasting for years, 2 hours a week, for years. And I want to share something that I've noticed. I've noticed this 4 on 4 separate occasions. Once in person when you were speaking at a conference. And when you talk about aliens, Groom Lake, the Greys, something happens to you, Rick. Do you know that?
Yes.
Something happens and you get a mental block.
I observed that during the debriefing. Krill, my area of expertise is not aliens. I have not studied them. I have studied artifacts. And I was invited to Groom Lake because this entity wanted to meet me. I have no idea why. This was in 1974. I think it was in 75, and just before Iona. And I was given a room opened, and I had 8 floors down. I was 8 floors down. And there was a table with a stack of top secret documents. I had 1 hour to debrief myself with whatever need to know. I just started reading documents. When the door opened and I saw this entity. This entity was 7.5, maybe 8 feet tall, very tall, long neck, gray. And I remember seeing it. I remember the feeling of feminine. It was a she. I don't know how I can explain that. I just felt that. And then my memory is gone. From that moment on, I have no idea what happened. Apparently, we stood at opposite ends of the room for probably 2/3 of an hour, and the interview was over. I was brought back out, and they tried to debrief me on what was said because there was nothing happening. We were just there. By the way, that is the reason I wrote and did studies on synthetic telepathy. I could not understand how I could hear this entity voice inside my head. And that led me to the microwave band studies that I now, and man has another sensory motor input, has a way of communication in space, for example. We relate to it as extrasensory perception and telepathy. There's something else going on here that I do not understand that includes biological amplification so that it could be a very, very, very fine signal, and yet you can amplify it because of the way your brain works. It has to do with resonance. In any case, I remember the event, and that's all I remember. Whether it's a dream now or not, I have documents, like I do with when I debriefed Milan Riesel. I have actual recordings that show that there's something that happens. So I don't know what it means. Maybe there's some kind of electronic block that this entity put into me that will allow me at some point to open it up like my DNA, where I now have full disclosure. At this point, I don't. That's my statement.
Several years ago, Rick, I got a call from Bert Bertonis, and he is a radio frequency engineer. He's a patent holder. He's a expert witness, and he works with a lot of companies that are in the communications business. He called me up, and he said, "Hey, Vinny, I'd like to come over, and there's this UFO hotspot in Missouri where there's these balls of light that travel, and they make maneuvers that we don't know how to make. It's almost like if someone were pointing a flashlight at night and you could only see hundreds of feet or 1,000 feet away from the flashlight, just a ball of light, but not where the flashlight reflector reflects the light all the way out to the end of where the light travels to. It looks like, a ball of light that you could just wave that flashlight around and make all kinds of maneuvers that are just not possible with aircraft."
Well, and inertia.
Yeah, that's right. And he said he'd like to come out here and study this. And I said, "Sure, come on up." So he came over, from California. We drove out to this UFO hotspot, and we brought with us, or we met a ufologist, a pretty well-known guy. He's been on Coast to Coast with Art Bell for years. And so he was there, and Bert Bertonis and I were there, and we were looking for any kind of evidence that these things happen. And I did not see anything at that time. And I mentioned to the two guys I was with, I said, what is it about this spot? What is it that makes this spot special? Is there iron ore in the ground? Is there some kind of magnetism here? Is it radioactive? What is it? Is there something here that is causing this to be this site where these strange things happen and not 100 miles away? Why is it right here? I didn't see any power lines or anything like that. And the ufologist was kind of annoyed with me. He thought I was, joking, and I was not joking. I was absolutely serious. And so he did not have an answer.
That's a really extremely valid question.
Okay. Well, here's the next question I had. So Bert Bertonis said he wanted to come back, and he wanted to bring some instrumentation with him. He wanted to bring a spectrum analyzer, and he wanted to set up an antenna array and see if he could find how these things communicate. Because there wouldn't be just one ball of light. There would be multiple balls of light, and they'd come flying at a person at a high speed, and then they would veer off. One would go to the left, and one would go to the right. Kind of like a fastball coming at you, or actually two fastballs, and just before they hit you, they would change course and move away from you. And they would just fly around. And he wanted to know what type of frequency they used to communicate. And he thought that possibly these things were scouts. Scouts here communicating back to, the mothership, if you will, what they are observing, feeling, seeing, and so forth. And I said to him, what makes you think that they need to communicate at all? What makes you think, why? Why would you say that? Why wouldn't they just know? Why would they, if they can do all these things, why wouldn't they just know and not have to communicate at all? So maybe bringing a spectrum analyzer won't do any good at all because there's nothing to measure, because these are just detached parts of the same entity. And that was kind of a showstopper. It's like, wow.
That, by the way, was a second valid question, and led to the discussion we had a few weeks or a month ago when I discussed scalars. And what a scalar is a resonant cavity system that communicates upward or downward in dimensional physics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, Rick, there are things that we just don't understand. And
well, that's right.
Maybe we just aren't technologically as sophisticated as we may think we are.
Well, here's the interesting part. David Wilcock, who I actually am beginning to respect more and more, is a pretty good researcher, but talks about things I cannot. For example, the alien base in Antarctica. I know nothing about it, and Benjamin Fulford, whom he's quoting from, is highly suspect in my mind. But he talks about an alien race that lost in an intergalactic war and hid out on Earth 100 miles below the surface of the Earth. And this race, reptilian, called, the reptilian race that Ike and others claim is that created man as a droid slave to work in caves, mining gold, etc., etc., etc. Now, I don't know who the enemy is, whether it's this guy or that guy, Ra or some alien to serve man V. I don't know. But what I do know is I have an inner truth in my gut where I know what I know is right. And right now, something's wrong. And I know that. I can sense it. And I know that I don't know. I probably will never know, but I know that it isn't right. And I will not participate in things I do not believe in. Now, those are arbitrary. Belief systems are arbitrary, so how does that work? Well, I always go back to my inner, inside voice that I talk to myself with. And that place is absolutely never led me wrong. Never. And that's the place that I trust for myself. Not the outer word, not the scriptures, not this, not that. It's my response to it. And that's where I find my truth. And we're all different. And that's God's will. And I have no problem with that part. I just know what I will do and what I will not do. And I watched Criminal Minds, where they force these people into mortal combat, and the one man has to kill the other man
hold that thought.
in order to
Rick,
save his daughter.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. We'll be right back.
Vincent?
Dr. Richard Alan Miller. Yes.
I need you to turn the volume up, and I have one thing to say, and then we can close down.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I need help. I need not donations. I need book sales. And I need book sales from my website alone. And if you'll do that, that alone will help me. I don't want free money. What I want is to earn it validly. And so if you buy my books, that works for me. That's what I needed to say. And you need to buy them from me.
How would you like us to do that?
Well, the smart money tells me to have you send me a check. Snail mail. That means nobody's got a recording. You're not recorded on anybody's computer list, that kind of thing. That's
How do we do that?
Mailing address is 2890 Midway Avenue, Grants Pass, Oregon, 97527. I'm planning to get a post office box shortly. But ordering electronically using PayPal has worked for me. I've just gotten 2 orders in for my encyclopedia. Did you know I've only sold 9 copies of my encyclopedia at this point only?
Rick, how do we... all right, Rick, tell us very quickly about your encyclopedia and what it sells for, what the price is.
It has 9 volumes, more than 1,100 pages of alternative agriculture articles I've written over a 10-year period that were organized and indexed and cross-referenced. It is possibly the single most important resource in farming alternative agriculture.
Okay, so we send a check payable to whom?
Oak Publishing or me directly, Richard Alan Miller. Actually, Richard Alan Miller will allow me to cash the check as opposed to having to deposit it and wait for collections, because Oak is a business name, a DBA.
Okay, so Richard Alan Miller, 2890 Midway Avenue, Grants Pass, Oregon, 97527. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So Richard Alan Miller, Richard A-L-A-N, Miller, 2890 Midway Avenue, Grants Pass, Oregon, 97527.
George,
9 volumes.
Internet ordering, but going to my website, not Amazon, not eBay, no other source. You go directly to me and buy the book from me. That's the way it should work.
Okay, and to email you for questions, how would you like the
and
emails?
I'm easily accessible. Some of my fans call me, and I've become close friends with some of my fans, where they come up and spend days here visiting me in the mountains where I live. I'm 1 hour to the beaches, going through the redwoods.
Do you want your phone number to be used or not?
I don't care.
Well, that's real risky, I know.
Oh, listen, I'm like you, Vincent. I can always, hang up on them.
Yeah, not that I like doing that. All right, so Rick, did you want to give out?
No. But usually, I just realize, everyone, that I've been hijacked. And my phones are compromised. That means if you do call me, somebody else will be listening besides me.
How would they call you, Rick?
541-476-5588. Keep it to a minimum. I'm overwhelmed. This is like when
class.
you need, some help. If you're creepy and ill, I'll say so. If you are, if I can help you, I will say so. Mostly, I'm trying to help myself right now. I'm so, it's terrible. So don't bother me if you don't need to bother me. I don't, thank you, yeah. I have a stalker.
And you're in Pacific time, so class, keep that in mind. Rick Miller's in Pacific time. Okay, 541-476-5588. That's Rick's phone number. You've got the same phone number that I have. Dr. Richard Alan Miller, thank you for being with us today. And if you'd like to get a copy of the Alternative Agriculture Encyclopedia, 9 volumes, 1,100 pages, you can call Rick. And you'll get the same encyclopedia that I have. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.